Okay, everyone, just a short video today. I haven't been following the case of Tyler Robinson very closely at all. Now, he's the accused killer of Charlie Kirk. This week, all of a sudden, Robinson is back in the news, 10 months after the murder. He's in court for a preliminary hearing. Yes, that's unusual because the operative word in preliminary hearing is preliminary. Now, in most criminal cases, the preliminary hearing takes place between 1 and 3 days after the arrest. Charlie Kirk was murdered on September 10th of last year. Robinson surrendered just a few days later. He hasn't even entered a plea in the case 10 months after the arrest. Again, unusual, but maybe not as unusual as it might be because it's a capital case and there's a huge volume of evidence. Now, his attorneys didn't challenge his pretrial detention either. But they are finally challenging his arrest. Now, that's what a preliminary hearing is for. They're putting the state to its burden on probable cause, which isn't proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Probable cause just requires enough facts and circumstances to lead a reasonable person to believe a crime has been committed and that the defendant committed it. I have no information about a potential plea deal. Now, that might be another reason why his attorneys have delayed the preliminary hearing. They wanted to delay it even further to more than a year after Robinson's arrest. In my view, the conspiracy theories that say Robinson is just a patsy might have given his attorneys hope that they could find a path, but not a lot of hope. Because apparently there's video of Tyler Robinson in a sniper position as Charlie Kirk was shot. So that goes to probable cause, which is all the state needs to prove at the preliminary hearing. Now, the defense could use a psychiatric defense to try to get the death penalty off the table. We haven't heard about any of that yet in Robinson's case because there's no plea yet. And this is despite the fact that there was an in-person hearing a few months ago to discuss cameras in the courtroom, but no plea. Now, potentially, the defense attorneys are looking to see which way the wind blows politically. And it's not as if Robinson was ever going to get out. He's been sitting in jail for 10 months without an indictment, okay? There's not even an affidavit from a police officer. He was charged by information. Here it is, in written form, sworn to by the prosecuting attorney. Now, with all of that being said, the preliminary hearing is ongoing. It's a 5-day preliminary hearing, and police officers have testified. Now, some cases get just a 1-day preliminary hearing or a couple of hours, but there's a lot of evidence the state wants to present here because there are cameras in the courtroom, and the state wants to dispel conspiracy theories, it seems. For example, the university paved over the area where Charlie Kirk was shot and killed. That's not unusual if the police already have taken what evidence they need from the site. Now, let's think about this. If the victim's blood is all over the university's property, it has to be cleaned up after the police take the evidence. The conspiracy theories about paving over the area where the victim's blood was, in my view, are misguided. So misguided. Vandalism cases on government property, for example. Now, those are always dealt with quickly, after the police take evidence photos and samples, etc. The reflecting pool on the National Mall, for instance, is alleged to have been vandalized. There's a felony indictment in that case, and yet the reflecting pool is being repaired as we speak. It's not going to sit in a state of disrepair until after the trial. Crime scenes do have to be cleaned up after the police take evidence. It doesn't matter that the amateur sleuths want to go there as well and take their evidence, and maybe they can't get there for several months. Now, what we cannot ignore about this accused is that he seems to have had no plan of escape, and what that indicates to me is that he was prepared to die on sight. Now, that's similar, in my view, to Luigi Mangione, despite the fact that Mangione had bought a bus ticket, yes, which might indicate a plan of escape, but his initial flight from the scene of the crime was on a bicycle, which would make him vulnerable to the police taking a shot. Now, the point being, if the police spot an assassin early on, they will take a shot, and that's a risk that these alleged assassins were willing to take. It seems they don't have a lot to live for. Now, Tyler Robinson didn't know Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk was a famous person who had no power to influence Robinson's life in terms of making him do anything he didn't want to do. Now, every affinity group in this country is substantial enough in number, and there are so many affinity groups that it's difficult to say that any one group has the power to stop anyone else from accomplishing their goals or living their dreams. That's one of the great things about living in a pluralistic society. We have to learn tolerance, everyone does, because whether we learn it or not, the law will enforce it. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, leave a like and don't forget to subscribe.